everybody, my name is Imaan and this is HauteLeMode, and today on HauteLeMode we are here with part 3 of our MET Gala Roast and Review. If you have not watched part 1 or part 2, I recommend you go and you do so, because the first one is most definitely a breakdown of some of the most popular people of the evening to the wider mainstream cultural audience. But we're going through the rest of the looks and breaking them down in alphabetical order. If you haven't seen part 2, well, go and watch that. And if you want to know what the theme is, which is gilded glamour, I'd go watch our explanation video. Super duper good, pretty in depth. Without further ado, we're just gonna get into this part 3 experience. There's quite a lot of looks to get through, so buckle in, a lot to discuss. First up, Gunna. Now, Gunna is wearing a custom Thom Browne look. It's made up of a cape that is embroidered with this gold sort of thorn embroidery, and then underneath is a jacket and a pant, and both of those have the Thom Browne 4 stripe band, which is a signature of the brand, in gold embroidery too. And then Gunna is wearing or carrying a Hector bag that has essentially been fully crystallized by his jeweler. Overall, there's a lot going on. The gilded glamour thing, I think, in a very literal sense, is coming through in the gold embroidery all throughout. Do I think that it hits the theme in a Gilded Age sense? No. I did some research trying to figure out what was going on with the look. I even reached out to Gunna's stylist, no response back. I get it, that it was a Friday. But I do think the Hector bag, weirdly enough, is some Gilded Age element. We talked about it a bit before when we were looking at Anita's outfit in the first video, I believe. Essentially, women of the Gilded Age would drip themselves in ridiculous amounts of pearls, precious gemstones, and jewelry. And so I'm wondering if that kind of is where we were going with this in terms of decorating that Hector bag, because I did research on the gram. That Hector bag was not always decorated. He was not always full of crystals. Next up, we have Gwen Stefani, and she is wearing a custom Vera Wang look. Now, it's made up of a little silky bandeau crop top glove, and made up of a large skirt that is full of fabric flowers and large gatherings and drapes and ruffles. And I think the most obvious thing that we can see is the neon element. This is like a neon acetate yellow. The neon colors we'll discuss, I think, as time goes on, but neon was technically invented, I think, or at least discovered in the 1890s, but not color-wise. It was more so the neon gas was discovered. So if that's what we're technically going for here, okay. Will I say that maybe we can talk about the synthetic color history and, how that sort of came around during the Gilded Age? Yeah, I'm not completely sold on that though. And that's just in general. It's the same thing with Glenn Close and that Valentino. I'm just not sold on that. Am I a little bit more sold on putting a crop top with a large sort of big gown skirt that isn't really super duper bustle style, but at least it's large and it's big and it's meant to be sort of dramatic and over the top? Yeah, I would say that this skirt feels at least a little bit more 1870s, really early 1870s than the 1880s, 1890s. We can actually see when Gwen is turned to the side that it looks like there is actually a bustle that's been created in the back. I will say this has a very sort of early 1870s silhouette to me, because it's not totally flat in the front, which is what happens when you hit the mid 1870s, but it feels like it's still kind of wide in the front, still a little bit dome shaped. We're moving out of the 1860s silhouette, but at least there's a bustle, there is a slant, you can see it. I would say it has more of a shelf bustle that's more 1890s, which I would say is more the second bustle period than the first, but at least there is a bustle. It's with this big gigantic skirt, and again, we can even see when we zoom in that the way that the flowers come down on the train accentuates the fact that there is a bustle shape. Brilliant. Gwen, she's on it. Listen, I'm gonna give her the neon. I'm gonna give her synthetic color. I'm gonna give her bustle. I'm gonna give her decoration regarding the bustle. And again, what we did up top was a nice crop top. Make it a little bit modern. Make it a little bit easy. I'm sold. Gwen Stefani, a thank you. Holla back to this girl when we need her to come next year. Knows what she's doing. Next up we have Hillary Clinton, and she's wearing Altuzarra, which is a custom look. It's a maroon gown with a flow over off the shoulder flounce at the top, and then it's just pretty much fitted. I mean, listen, in and of itself, the look more or less to me has a very women of the Gilded Age look. Sans bustle, you know what I mean? The bustle's not there, but I would say that weirdly enough, like overall, you know, we could pick any random, like uninteresting, wealthy woman of the time period and say like, oh, I could see this. Like there literally are dresses. I believe one is of Mrs. Gould. It's a maroon gown, although shockingly, for the 1890s when Mrs. Gould was around, her dress looks better than Hillary's. So at the sort of like exciting thing that was about this dress, and I'm using exciting really sparingly here, was Hillary had 60 names of like famous women throughout history embroidered at the edge of this little flounce. And my thing is, listen, if it had been women that were from the Gilded Age and had really amazing like accomplishments, like a Madame C.J. Walker or a Leslie Frank, a Ida B. Wells or Susan B. Anthony, or any number of women from that period that like really did stuff during the age to fight for unions or to work on women's rights and rise to prominence and be in competitive business competition with men of the period. Had we done that, I would have said like, yeah, sure. But it just felt like we were doing random women throughout history that was just like, here, give me brownie points, which just doesn't feel super duper on theme. I understand that also the night of the Met Gala, the Roe v. Wade draft was leaked. Did Hillary know about this? I don't know. I understand it. It just feels a little bit gimmicky in that sense. It just feels like, give me my political brownie points. And my thing is, I'm more than happy to give political brownie points if it's actually education on people from that period that we should know about. Not all of them are there. Listen, like Harriet Tubman, yeah, icon. Like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Save that for a different Met Gala. You know what I mean? Save that for some time else. But Ruth was old, she wasn't that old. And that's my issue. Next up we had HoYeon Jung, and she is wearing Louis Vuitton. Now this is a look from a Louis Vuitton collection of the past. It's a blue suede dress with some side bust cutouts. It has little black leather elements going on and a knee-high black high-heeled boot. I mean, it's just like a strapless cocktail, and we're getting very 1960s from that, in my opinion, which we're like about a solid 60 years off. The other thing is, I feel like Nicola has referenced the Gilded Age just a little bit, maybe not even just the Gilded Age, but like Victorian era dress in collections of the past. I just wonder why we didn't shoot for something like that, because this feels a little bit confusing. I just feel like we could have went more oriented. Absolutely. I also understand that like she is literally a South Korean model and actress, so like the Gilded Age of America, why would she give a fuck? I get it, I do, I understand, but I still think we could have brought more. Next up we have Imaan Hammam, and she's wearing Oscar de la Renta. Now this is a custom gown that the model here is wearing. Do I think it looks beautiful on her? Absolutely. I think it's one of the most striking but most simplistic look of the night, in that sense of it's really just about this pleating. The color is gorgeous. The way that that double train fans out from the shoulders in like a halter sort of style. You have that front cutout that showcases like clavicle, pit, a nice little thigh, leg moment going on too. I will say, at first when I saw it, I was like, it's not on theme. And do I necessarily think it's still on theme? Nah. Questionable. Do I think that there is maybe possibly the slightest chance that Oscar de la Renta was referencing Loie Fuller, who was a ballet dancer for the Folies Bergère? Yes. Do I think that she was a French dancer dancing in France during the period? Yes. Do I think that we were bringing it over to the United States? I'm unsure. But there are images of her wearing these very, very long train-like pleated gowns. This one that I'm showing on screen is from 1902, so I'm not sure whether or not it's really, really on theme. 1 or 2 years I'm willing to like give a little tiny baby bit leeway. But that's kind of where I was wondering if this inspiration is coming from. Do I know? No. If it is, okay. If it's not, no. But overall, I do think the dress is beautiful. If it's referencing Loie Fuller, who was a dancer, points. If not, proud of myself for the research, but disappointed in Oscar de la Renta. Next up is Iris Law, and she is wearing Moschino. Now, this is a bronze, silver-y, and gold feather halter style dress that exposes the midriff and then sort of comes in and creates a mermaid trumpet style effect. Will say that was technically invented by Marcel Rochon in the early 20th century, so not on theme. I also will say, I mean, like, yeah, the blue and the gold gilded, sure, but again, for anybody that's gonna be like, oh, well, it's the natural form. Yeah, my ass. That's just not the case here. It's just not on theme, and that's a disappointment. Next up, we have Jack Harlow, and he's wearing Givenchy. Now, this is a brown chocolate double-breasted suit jacket, and again, if we look at the suit jacket as Jack is holding it, it's flat. No curvature, no pull away, no none of that, so like not on theme automatically. Pants, blah. The shoes, blah. The shirt, blah. It's just not on theme. And listen, did Jack Harlow have one of the most memorable moments of the Met Gala when he said love you to Emma Chamberlain, and Emma Chamberlain said love you back, and then produced that face that honestly I've laughed at like 47 different times? Yes. And so I thank both of them for that. But do I think the jacket is on theme? No. The suit jacket does not hit the morning suit, the afternoon suit, the day suit, the evening suit, the night suit, the after night suit, none of the suits. And my thing is, like, we could have just done like a really high collar that was stiff and starched and crazy, but like we didn't do that. We could have done like a cravat. We just did a regular tie. And I think that's my issue here, is there's ways to like do the menswear where it's really simple and really easy and really fun and references the period. And we just like did a big boxy suit jacket in brown silk. Why? Like, why not just do a tad bit of research? And Matthew Williams is American. Matthew, disappointing. If we want to talk about somebody that did the theme, did it well, and did menswear, let's talk about Jeremy Pope wearing Dion Lee. Now, you're probably going to say, Luke, this is just so dramatic. It's so over the top. It's so ostentatious. That would have never been worn. Absolutely. Of course it wouldn't have been worn. But that's the point. This is a leather jacket, a fabric that really wouldn't have been used in like a tailored sense during that period. But the great thing about Dion Lee and Jeremy Pope here is what we did is the fall away of the period, the jacket, that as these sort of two little ends meet around, you know, the waist area, they start to split apart and come down and create a little bit of drama, a little bit of kooky crazy. Now here, this leather jacket obviously does that. It's a little bit more gay nightclub in a Brooklyn warehouse, which very on brand for Dion Lee. But it's also nice in the sense that we still have tails, they split. There's a little bit of a train, a little bit of drama, a little bit over the top moments. And then we have this pant situation, which we can't really see his hips, but like his hips are exposed. So it's kind of like ostentatious menswear, which we'll take at this point because like it's allowed. The jacket, honestly, I think genuinely hits the theme. I think that it's a great take on what I would say is like the university suit, in the way that it really dramatically sort of flared out, was super different than what menswear would have been at the time period, and honestly still is keeping like the Dion Lee isms of the brand alive and happening. Overall, Jeremy Pope, I think, killed it. Theme is on point. It looks great. It's cool menswear. It has drama. It hits tailoring. I'm sold. Next up is Jessica Chastain, and she is wearing Gucci. Now, this is a custom look, and evidently, like, she's trying to go full sort of fortune teller here. Now, I did a little tiny bit of research into this because I was like, fortune tellers. I don't know, probably still like Salem witch trials at this point during the Gilded Age. Technically, no. Fortune tellers were around during the period. There was obviously like a little bit of not all that much love. There were laws that were against fortune telling during the time, but people still fortune told. They told the fortunes. Will I say that there's like a bustle involved here? No, there isn't. From the back, you actually can't see any sort of protrusion, so that's not going on. But do I think that, weirdly enough, the natural form is hit to a degree here? Yeah. You can see, obviously, like that there is a very, very tight waist. There is no puffed sort of gigot sleeve, which I think would have been like a great little nod just to create some sort of drama there. But we can also see the front ruching of this maroon sequined skirt situation in the front. It is gathered, it is sort of texturized. And when you put that together with the nipped waist, maybe, possibly. I will say I'm not super duper sure on the dress codes of fortune tellers of the time period, but I do know that they did exist. They were a thing. I would say that this is maybe referencing more early 20th century sort of movies and TV references to fortune tellers, but I do think an element that's really, really cool is the way that this snake, which is a Gucci house code, sort of slithers into that keyhole cutout and then around the neck and then down the arm is really, really cool, really, really smart. Jessica Chastain, I'm not sure is really on theme, but I mean, I know that at least fortune tellers existed during the Gilded Age, so maybe we'll let it slide a little bit. Although, you know, I wish she was doing a little bit more drama like this on the red carpet, because, like, this is a fire look in general. In context, questionable. Next up, we have Joe Jonas, and he is wearing a custom Louis Vuitton piece. Now, this look is most definitely referencing the Louis Vuitton Fall 2022 runway collection. It is a double-breasted men's blazer. From underneath, we can see that it definitely looks like a style from Fall 2022 underneath in the lace. Pieces of lace sort of trickle down to create tails of sorts, or almost like a train. I think it's an interesting look because, again, with the lace, technically, like, it was on trend. It was definitely something that was worn during the period. The double-breasted suit has a little bit more wedding kind of suit style, very, very formal, but like a take on very, very formal. Like, menswear of the time period was very subdued and not super out of the box. I appreciate that Joe like went for it. At least there's something here. And again, if you're not able to like do a crazy custom reference moment to the period, at least like we're trying, it seems like, to some degree. And again, we can just talk about like upcycling during the period and like clothing and how that happened, and even like the richest people of the time period did it because it was a thing. Mrs. Astor did it. So like, yeah, we'll let it slide. Next up is Johnny Suh from NCT, and he is wearing a custom Peter Doe look. This is a full silk satin style, and it has the Peter Doe tattoo stripe. So when we were talking about Eva Chen in the past video, Johnny also has that, except there's no sort of opera glove. Now, this is a waistcoat, vest, and then a black tailed long jacket, and then a simple sort of pant. Now, my thing is, I do think that the tailed coat is really fun and definitely sort of references the tuxedo tailcoats of the period, although it's a little bit longer and a little bit less sharp. I think maybe with the vest, had we gone a little bit more low cut and curvaceous, it would have hit the period more, most definitely. I will say that the waistcoat has an 1880s sort of cut to it. A lot of them were sort of curved quite low, but this one to me seems a little bit more the casual everyday sort of waistcoat style. Do I think that obviously like I would have liked a little bit of drama? Yes. Do I think that this is Peter Doe sort of doing the very simplistic, minimal sort of attention to detail style that he normally does? Yeah. And do I think that that fits into the less ostentatious menswear styles of the period? Yeah. I don't think there's anything kooky crazy going on. Do I maybe wish that we had like a shirt or something underneath to like do a cravat of some sort? Yeah, I think that would have been cool. But overall, like, I guess it technically does sort of hit the casual menswear vibe of being boring and blonde and interesting. But at least with Peter Doe, we're creating an interesting tailcoat. We're bringing in house codes. It's very sort of the time period, but more modern. I get it. Next up is Jon Batiste, and he is wearing Ralph Lauren. I love this look. I think this is a great reference of going through and referencing a few different styles of the Gilded Age. Now, we obviously have like the big wide lapels, and that waistcoat underneath you can see kind of scoops very, 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 very low, which I love. I think the black velvet is really, really nice. I think it works. I think it plays into like what men of that upper class would have worn. And then another thing that's really, really great is you can see the little notch or the buttons that hold this jacket together. And again, I think it references those smoking suits from, you know, Turkey and the Middle East. I think that Jon Batiste and Ralph Lauren here did a great job of taking pretty much a really simple sort of menswear look, which Jon Batiste is not always like doing simple menswear, but really going for casual vibes. And we're going to insert little elements of Gilded Age dress from the period into it to make it sort of nice little subtle details. And I think that was done really, really well. I have to say, like, listen, I'm not normally one to be like, oh wow, simple menswear, but it's hitting the theme, it's hitting the vibe, it's hitting a moment, and it looks good. Next up is Jordan Roth, and he is wearing Thom Browne in a two-piece sort of situation, similar to Blake Lively. First up, we have Jordan in this coat. Now, this is a black version of a coat from the Fall 2022 Thom Browne collection that just came out. And the thing is, it's a large sort of dome-shaped coat. It feels very sort of crinoline-inspired, more 1850s, 1860s, I would say, mixed with like tailoring, although the look in general was inspired by tuxedos and menswear of like the mid 1880s. But what happened is this coat, which is made out of like mohair and moire and sequins, as we can see, is brought down and creates a skirt. This continuation and conversation about the tuxedo, obviously, I think is important, but I also want to say when the coat is on, we can see that this collar is really, really low. My issue really is there are just subtle little details that we could have done, and I feel like for Jordan, it would have been great to have that high, really stiff, starched collar, just to sort of create that in their menswear Gilded Age clothing reference. But when we get the jacket off and around the waist, Jordan said that it created a bustle. I don't know about that. I think that it creates a sort of overskirt silhouette. Yes. I won't say that it completely bustled though. Do I think that it's a smart sort of day to night look? Yeah. Depending on whose day to night it is, but yes. I just don't think it's bustled. I think it creates large overskirt sort of feeling and has a very 1860s kind of feeling to it, maybe 1890s, but maybe you can say that it's like 1890s inspired because obviously like the bustle sort of lost its prominence and things became a little bit more simple and the dome shape of the skirt came back to a degree. But yeah, I'm not like completely sold on that. I think there are little elements when the jacket is taken off that I think are really, really smart. The little sleeve garters are cool. It's definitely a reference to the late 19th century menswear sort of styling and dressing. It was something that did gain popularity during the latter half of the 19th century. So I feel like it's a cool little nod. The crop jacket is like definitely interesting. Would I have loved it a little bit more had it been flared out just a little bit? Yeah, possibly, but like I'm not gonna go crazy. And then we have a corset that is underneath that is covered in black sequins. And again, I think it's an interesting sort of take. Menswear, women's wear, reconstructing the idea of gender during that time period. Overall, I don't like love the look in the context. I don't hate the look in the context. I think we're stretching the truth a little bit here. But do I think it's a great Thom Browne look that again in like any other context I'd be gooped and gagged over? Yeah, absolutely. I'm not completely sold on the storyline, but I'm not unsold on it either. Still deciding on whether or not I'm going to purchase. Next up is Julianne Moore, and she's wearing Tom Ford. And Tom Ford before this Met Gala made a statement, something along the lines of, I don't like the Met being a costume party. Wow. We're referencing Regency era dress here, so let's talk about costumes, Tommy. It most definitely is a reference to Regency style dress. We can see that there is sort of empire bust line, even though it's not really technically empire, but you know, you have a little Grecian neoclassical take on drapery. Does it hit right at the underbust? No, but do I think that that little gathering that goes right down the center is very Regency inspired? Yeah, I think so. Overall, again, like the neoclassical sort of style didn't really seep into the Gilded Age. It wasn't something that really was looked at or touched upon all that much, and especially not in sort of like polite high society. I feel like even though we're saying we're not doing costume party, like we're technically doing costume party, and sort of defeats the purpose. Also, again, like, I just wish we'd gone for a Gilded Age thing. I get it. If designers are like, listen, I don't want to do costume, I don't want to do blah, 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 but there's ways of going about referencing the period without it being costuming. We could have done a front drape. That would have really channeled that idea. We could have done a nice jacket over top that sort of had like a beautiful tailored element to it. There's a lot of ways to go about referencing that period without it being a costume experience, even though technically the period also enjoyed costume. I'm not understanding this dress because it's so Bridgerton to a degree that it's hard to sit there and say, oh, we weren't trying to do costume. Next, let's talk about Jodie Turner-Smith. Now, when you look at this look, you might say, oh, not on theme. Get into it. And I thought that too. But I will say, I'm wondering if this is a reference to burlesque, which most definitely did become popular during the Gilded Age. It was something that sort of happened. And a lot of these styles of bodysuits with fringe definitely was something that kind of did become popular costume on the stage of the theater. I won't say that the pleated train is exactly what was going on behind, but we can actually look at, you know, stage costume from like the 1870s to the 1880s and see that there is a bit of fringe going on. These styles did sort of create body suit silhouettes that did expose the legs and the arms. And so I'm wondering if that's really where Jodie was going with it. And if that's the case, I like it. Do I think that it's hard to make those styles look chic? yes, because they, you know, from the footage, they're not the chicest in the world. But it's a very interesting thing to see, and if that's what Jodie was going for, absolutely see it. If that's not what she was going for, disappointed in you, Jodie. But I'm going to put it in that I think that's what she was referencing. Now, next up, we have Casey Musgraves, and she is wearing Prada. Now, this is a custom look. It is black plunging neckline gown with a slight train that is covered in sort of firework embroidery that's quite colorful, and she's carrying a big feather fan and opera-length gloves. Now, in my head, I'm wondering if Casey was sort of going for burlesque dancers of the time period. I don't think that this dress exactly like hits the performance aspect, but it might hit more the risque evening wear, risque sort of day wear styles that you might have seen on stage during the time period. Again, that's a guess. The other thing that I've read is this is a reference to Holly Golightly. Breakfast at Tiffany's, made famous by Audrey Hepburn. I will say I have read Breakfast at Tiffany's, the book. It takes place in like the 40s in New York, so there's no Gilded Age situation going on there. So if that's the case, controversial. In my head, I'd like to think that it's a reference to burlesque styles of the Gilded Age. My research is leading me to believe that that's not the case, but in my head, I'm going to do my best. But if we're going for Holly Golightly, not on theme, very disappointing, very upset with UKC. I do think that there are little elements that we could have done to maybe make it a little bit more Gilded Agey, you know, a little bit more of like a bustle wouldn't have hurt, because honestly, there are images of literal burlesque dancers wearing like short dresses that have bustles. We could have done that. I know you, Micha. We're seeing here eye to eye. We could have done that. Didn't happen. Very disappointed. We should have pushed for that. Team Casey Musgraves x Prada. And that's the truth. Next up is Kaya Gerber, and she is wearing Alexander McQueen. Now, this is a custom look. It is filled with floral silver embroidery, and it's a majority, I believe, floral motif that's going on. I personally am wondering if it's a reference to William Morris, the arts and crafts movement, not founder, but sort of big kahuna, if you will, who essentially pioneered this idea of bringing handcraftedness back to art and textile design when it came to post-industrial revolution-y. Do I think that for like the singular McQueen dress, besides B. Schaefer or B. Carazzini that I've seen, that this is what we could have done in terms of Alexander McQueen Victorian fashion? No. And I think that's the most disappointing part, is that there are a lot of designers that definitely have referenced it in passing, but like the Victorian era is very much so like a overarching influence on the brand. From the first collection that Alexander McQueen ever put out to one of his last collections that he ever put out while he was alive. We could have done a little bit more drama. And again, I just think that in this space, a crazy, over-the-top, outlandish Alexander McQueen look is not a big ask from Sarah Burton. There's a lot of commerciality, there's a lack of theatricality from Alexander McQueen collections today, and that's okay-ish. On a red carpet, where we really could have went over the top, ridiculous, crazy, delivered the theatrics that are needed, not only from the Met Gala, but from the brand Alexander McQueen. It's a real disappointment to have not seen that at all. I understand, listen, William Morris, bringing it back, Strawberry Thief, giving it to the girls. I get it, I understand it, I'm here for it. But do that on any other red carpet. Do that at the Oscars, do that at the Emmys, do that at the Tonys. Don't do that here. Give us Jack the Ripper Stalks His Victim. Give us Horn of Plenty. Give us any one of the Alexander McQueen Victorian-inspired collections that really, truly showcase the beauty and the understanding of Victorian aesthetics that this brand is known for. And that's my thing. Kaya looks like pretty, sure, great. Not what I really care for here. And especially when you have Kaya as who we're dressing, there's no excuse not to have done something major. And Sarah Burton herself references Victorian styles. Next, let's talk about Karlie Kloss. Now, she is wearing a custom Givenchy dress. Essentially, in my opinion, it's referencing lingerie. I mean, we have a black sort of opaque bra, and then there's lace that's piping it. We have lace that comes down from like pelvic area down to accentuate the thighs and the legs. It's very much a lingerie slip dress, bra bustier inspired, just turned into a dress. It's gorgeous. It is. Like, I genuinely think it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful dress, and I think it's a great take on lingerie, and I say that genuinely. I just don't really see the Gilded Age influence. I'm not saying that I'm an expert on lingerie of the Gilded Age, but even so, I'm pretty positive that lingerie of the period was not like seductive or opaque. I'm pretty positive that a lot of it was pretty conservative. Obviously, like depending on who you're sort of, you know, looking at and what they're wearing. It was something that more or less was pretty buttoned up, not really see-through, not super duper provocative in that regard. And so, listen, I think it's a nice look, but in my opinion, do I think it fits the Gilded Age theme? If it does, somehow, okay, great. But even then, I don't think it fits into that like burlesque dancer sort of experience situation either. Like there's just not really like a look that I'm understanding where that's coming from. Next up, we have Kate Moss, and she's wearing Burberry. This is a custom look. It's essentially an off-the-shoulder black velvet gown that is meant to look like a double-breasted coat of some sort, and the silky lapels are sort of the neckline. They accentuate the bust. In the same way that I said about Amy Schumer, I'm not seeing it except for the whip stitch. I'm not seeing it here either. It just feels like a kind of blah, boring, lazy way of like taking menswear from the period and turning it into a dress. Next up, we have Kerry Washington, and she's wearing a custom Tory Burch look. It's an off-the-shoulder corseted bodysuit with chiffon drape with a poofed shoulder. Not understanding the theme, not understanding sort of any of it. Listen, had we had like a little silver chain strap situation, I'd say, okay, listen, modern Madame X by Sargent, but that's not. Maybe it's referencing burlesque of the period, maybe in a corset. Yeah, it's great to have a corset, but kind of meh in general. You know what I mean? Like I expect more from Miss Washington. I do. Next up, we had Kid Cudi, and he is wearing Kenzo. Now, this is a custom version of a Kenzo look by Nigo, and Nigo, from my understanding, specifically said that this was a look that was from the Kenzo archives from like 1984, like almost 100 years off, babe. Almost 100. So I think what they did is they just added this large cape over top and said like, we're going for it. And listen, do I love a wool blue cape? Absolutely. I think it's done. Just in the context of the Gilded Age, not really seeing the vibe. Like, had the collar been a little bit higher? Great. Have we done like a cravat? Great. Do I see the synthetic color element? Yeah, absolutely. I do. But besides that, with the little ruffly sleeves, we're not loving it. Any other context? Probably actually would be very, very happy about it. And I like seeing archival Kenzo. Do not get it wrong. Fashion nerd in me is like, oh, yeah. But no. Next up, we have Kiki Lane, and she is wearing custom Prabal Gurung. It's a full pink gown, and essentially I would presume that it has a boned corset situation going on at the bust. I would say that it's a boned corset situation going on at the bodice, but it flows into a sort of large pink skirt, and then the neckline and the strap sleeves decorated with artificial fabric flowers. Now, artificial fabric flowers very much so on point for the period. We can see it in a bunch of different sort of ways. The decorative buttons, again, are Prabal Gurung signature and also play into the history of the period. So again, we're hitting it there in our decorative elements. We wish that we had done like a little bit more bustling, yeah, but at the same time, we could maybe sit there and say like S-shape, even though it's not really dramatic. I don't completely hate it. I wish the skirt had been a bit bigger. I think it would have emphasized a little bit more. But besides that, I think that honestly, like between the color and the decorative elements of the buttons and the fabric flowers, pretty decently on theme. You know, I'm not mad about it. I think it's a nice dress in general, and I think that I'll let the themage slide because I think we're combining a bunch of different elements. I'm into Kiki Lane. I always was. Always will be. Next up is Cody Smith-McPhee, and he is wearing Bottega. Now, this is a white striped button-down shirt. Those leather pants that look like they're jeans, but they're not jeans, they're leather. Black boots and red leather gloves. I don't know of any Bottega red carpet looks that were worn by women, although I think there could have been like moments there. I'm just not seeing the Gilded Age referentials here. The striped shirt, jeans, maybe lower class people, working class people, absolutely, but I think we just really wanted to take the jeans from the runway and put them on the red carpet. It's just my thoughts. I don't think it's on theme. Listen, I think Cody Smith-McPhee and Bottega are a great duo. I think it has been proven that looks can be turned. I just wish that we'd went for it. It feels like we just went to it. It's not the same thing. Next up, we have Kris Jenner, and she's wearing Oscar de la Renta. Now, this is a sort of neoclassical drape in like a bright sunshiny yellow with a little bit of silver bugle bead embroidery along the edge of that asymmetrical top drape layer. Not seeing the Gilded Age reference. listen, I'm not saying that there weren't some off the shoulders and some draping going on that might be similar to, you know, what's going on here, but in general, I think we should have went for it. I think she looks better than any other Met Gala red carpet I've ever seen in my entire life that she's attended. Do I think that this fits the theme? No. Next up, we have Lala Anthony, and she is wearing a custom Laquan Smith garment. This is like a halter crystal top with an off-the-shoulder bodysuit and then draped sarong skirt, which, had we done a little bit more here, actually could have been a brilliant showcase of Laquan Smith doing the Gilded Age characteristics, but done with that Laquan Smith sort of like sexy, edgy appeal. And I just don't think we hit that there. I think my biggest issue is the skirt. I feel like we could have done a lot more in terms of drape, like something kooky crazy, definitely referential to the period. I understand like that drape is a drape, but I think that we need a little bit more effort. The off-the-shoulder element, I don't think is bad at all. I think that it definitely does sort of play to evening wear of the period. And I think the idea of adding in the crystal top sort of gives it a little bit more dimension. And again, it allows that plunge to go deeper, which then sort of makes it even more sexy because at most you would have hit the bosom area. I respect that idea. Again, we can talk about the bodysuits playing into burlesque elements. And the thing that I also love is there's a hat. The hat headpiece experience. Lala went for it. Very grateful. It's like pulling teeth to get somebody to wear a hat. Do I think we could have taken it a few steps further? Absolutely. Next up, we have Laura Harrier, and she is wearing H&M. Now, this is a look that, in reality, most definitely like touches on the period. It's a jacquard in like a dark gray. It has little sort of gold or silver chains that are laid across it and sort of help to shape that bodice. There is a simplistic jacquard strap situation, and the corset fits really, really beautifully. It does. Like it does fit. And then we have the gathering of the skirt and sort of pulls out. It's definitely more of a modern take on the style. And if we look at Laura from the side, you can see that there is a bustleization. It's not super dramatic, it's not super over the top, but it does exist, which honestly, that's all I can ask for at this point. Do I wish that maybe there was a little bit more tailoring going on with like a little jacket or something? At all, I think that it is very monotone in terms of detailing. Most definitely. I do think that silhouette-wise, we've captured something really, really nice here, really, really well. We got a bustle, technically not a bustle, it's more of like a petticoat, because she said it was a petticoat, but like still we got some sort of junk in the trunk in terms of dressing, and I'm happy about that. Do I like the gloves? No. Do I like the pearl chokers? No. Do I wish we'd done a little bit more in that regard? Absolutely. But overall, she got the dress right, so I'm gonna take that. Next up, we have Léna Mahfouf, otherwise known as Léna Situations on YouTube, and she went full bustle. Listen, we love to see it, we're grateful. Somebody actually took the theme for real. And listen, the other thing is like a YouTuber, no less, thank God. So essentially this look is by Markarian, which is a US-based brand again. Shout out Lena, she knows what she's doing. It's full of little delicate floral embroidery, which honestly, I will take. Personally love the motif? No. But do I think that the nice little beautiful floral embroidery moments fit into, you know, the haute couture elements of the period and what would have been worn? Yeah, I think so. I think it's obviously a little bit more kitschy and cutesy. Markarian is a little bit more kitschy and cutesy. So I get it. But the thing is, like, she added an actual bustle. Like, there's a bustle element going on here. What the little hot pan is underneath the lining, that little silver line, I don't know her. I don't want to know her. I'd like her to go away. But there's a bustle. I appreciate it. I'm grateful for everybody saying YouTubers. Who needs them? Evidently this Met Gala did, because she's here. She's bustled. She got the BBL. Next up is Lena Waithe, and she is wearing Versace. Now this is a custom look, and now I tried to deduce, I looked this up a couple times, couldn't exactly find real inspiration. Apparently, according to Versace, it was Southwestern styles, and then turn of the century tailoring, which is like 1900s tailor, like 1900 tailoring. So 1899, 1900. I think the color is very Versace. I think that in reality, the studs and the embroidery that goes upon the lapel and then sort of pipes comes down to the end of that jacket. Not super Southwestern, but like I understand the Southwestern influence and referencing going on there. I do think that it's rather intricate and all that. I know that coats starting at 1900 definitely were like this one would have been. So we're cutting it close, but technically 1900 is still the Gilded Age. There is a little sheer top underneath. It's like almost like a checkerboard of embroidery, but it's like circular and all that. And I feel like maybe, I don't know, references like maps, or I think it's a little bit niche, Gilded Age. I think we're cutting it right by the cusp, but I think it's like there. Again, perfect element? No. But like, I think that we're hitting the theme, I think. Next up is Lenny Kravitz doing a full corset moment. Proud. This is a custom chrome hearts look, and so it does have a corset you can see all the way through. There is a lace sleeved cape top situation and black leather pants. Will I say that it's the most on theme thing? No, but like, is it a man wearing a corset? Yeah, and that's good. And you know, overall, do I think it like is a little bit blah? And I say that blah in the same sense that I would say about Amy Schumer and Kate Moss wearing long coats and sort of saying like, oh, look at us, menswear tailoring. Lenny Kravitz, I think, is the reverse. Like, yes, it's great to see Lenny in a corset. Yeah. I think we could have like gone a little bit further with it. Yeah. The lace, again, like, listen, I get it. Period, piece, da-da-da, sure. But like, even with Chrome Hearts, it's a brand that is about jewelry, correct? When we discuss the Gilded Age and we talk about American women dousing themselves in jewelry and fine gems and oysters and pearls, and we didn't think to do that for a jewelry brand. Questionable. No? Questionable. That's questionable to me. That's my thing. We could have taken this farther for Lenny in the same way we could have taken it farther for Kate Moss. You gotta spice it up a little bit, because now we're at the point where it's like, this is kind of casual. We'll see it once a red carpet. Next up is Leslie Odom Jr., and he is wearing Fendi. It's pretty much just like a cropped, double-breasted jacket that showcases the white shirt underneath, and like, again, starch collar. Like, if we're not gonna put a tie there, starched collar. Not that hard. Not that difficult. I like the hat. I don't know what's going on with the hat, but I like it. And the little Mary Jeans have me laughing. But again, menswear on theme, I don't think so. Listen, I checked the Fendi thing. Nobody gave a reference point, so I know somebody's gonna come in the comments and be like, ugh! But like, nobody gave a reference point. Next up, we have Lila Moss. Now, I know a lot of you are gonna be like, Luke, so not on theme. And listen, that's what I thought at first. I was like, oh, all right, let's get into it. But doing my job, aka researching, looking at burlesque inspiration, and then I found a garment of somebody wearing a bodysuit like this from the 1890s, and it looks just like Lila Moss and Burberry, so technically is it on theme? Like, yeah. And did I mumble that whole thing? Absolutely. And like, will I repeat it? No. Here's the thing. This Burberry look is essentially a sheer fitted garment over a light beige bodysuit. It says Burberry on it, the Burberry horse and all that sort of stuff, crystallized over top, which is like a fun little thing. It comes down, there's little Burberry horses there and all that sort of stuff. But then you look at that image, the burlesque dancer from the 1890s, and I'm like, it's technically the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same. I don't want it to be on theme, but it's on theme. And so now that Lila's on theme, I mean, like, I don't think it's the worst sort of incorporation of Riccardo Tisci's Burberry motifs and styles. I mean, you can see it in that Burberry, like, he's very much so taken Burberry and expanded it, enlarged it, made it something that the name in and of itself is incorporated in the designs. It's been like that since his debut collection, so like, technically, I get it. When you put it alongside these burlesque performers, it's very much so in theme with just him as a designer, sort of taking bodysuits and bustiers and things like that and putting sheer sort of tight-fitting overlays over top. Like, it does make sense in reality, so I hate to be the bearer of bad news here, but she's on theme, and I mean, like, technically it's a pretty decent on-theme moment from both Lila and Riccardo Tisci, because incorporates his Burberry, his own design aesthetics, and the Gilded Age. Next up is Lily Aldrich, and she is wearing Kate, which is a New York-based brand. It's essentially a sheath dress in Swarovski crystals, and then it has little sleeve garters, if we want, that create a sort of secondary train or like a double-tailed train situation. I just don't really see the Gilded Age part. Like, yeah, of course, like a train is Gilded Agey to a degree, but like, why didn't we bustle the crystals? Why didn't we bustle the fabric? Why didn't we manipulate it? I understand it's crystals and like da-da-da, should fall straight, whatever, but like, then why use crystals? Also, I don't really feel like this is exactly like a super Kate fabric. Like, the thing is, if you look at old Kate collections, they're literally like little miniature baby Chico sleeves. It's kind of like a house code, so why wouldn't we do that? This is what I'm saying, is I'm not understanding why the designers weren't just actively working through their own house codes, because I'm sure that some of their house codes incorporate different elements of this period. Swarovski crystals doesn't. So thank you, but no thank you. Not on theme. Next up is Lily Allen. It's Chanel. It's pretty grotesque, I have to be completely frank. I'm not going to mince words. I'm not going to waste time. It is god dang ugly as sin. The embroidery is god-awful. It has nothing to do with the Gilded Age. And again, like Karl Lagerfeld, Virginie both referenced the Gilded Age, Victorian dressing throughout their careers at Chanel thus far. So like, why not just do that? You could have taken a feather and made a feather bustle train. Oh my God, that's... And I just thought about that right now. Like, is that insane? That's nuts. I just thought about that. So anybody being like, well, I want to see your design. I just gave that one to Chanel for free, so you're welcome. Next up is Lily James, and she is wearing custom Versace. And the same thing with Anita, like the pearls, like, yeah, okay, sure, dripping in diamonds, dripping. I'm not super duper sure about that. I know that the pearls all sort of are like encrusted and all that sort of stuff on top, and like we could talk about the whole idea of like putting yourself in jewels and disaster and all that. That's great. I don't think that that's where Lily James was going with it. This whole thing was about like freedom of women in the Gilded Age. I know it's currently a very not great topic to question freedom of women, and I understand why, but I just don't think she was going for the theme. I think she was like, I don't want to do that, I don't care. And that's what happened here. Do I think it's like a pretty-ish dress? Sure, absolutely. Do I think that we're going for the theme? No. And do I think that we're just like tacking on explanations to be like, I didn't care, but we can just say this? That's what I think is happening. So, not on theme, not interested, no thank you. Next up is Louisa Jacobson, and she is wearing Gabrielli. This is from the fall 2022 Haute Couture collection. And here's the thing. Here's my thing. Why didn't we stay on theme? Denise Benton did it. Why couldn't we? Miss Marion Brooke? Here's my issue, is there's like a little tiny baby waist ruffle. Maybe we can all like lie to ourselves and say that we were referencing the burlesque dancers and the bon ton of the Gilded Age. And if we were, at least I mentioned it, it could possibly be a reference here. I don't think it was, because I don't think that that was a part of the collection. And I think that there are some like more obvious Schiaparelli looks, like that Carey Mulligan one that is a good example of doing Gilded Age. And again, if we were going to do it, like we could have bustled that skirt, we could have made it a lot shorter and then sort of done like big tutu skirt referencing burlesque, etc., etc. I just think Miss Louisa was like, I wore enough of it on set, I'm good. So if you're doing Gilded Age, you should have just done Gilded Age and then shown the girls how to do it, and everybody would have put you on the best dress list. It's the truth. It's the truth. Next up is Lucy Boynton, and she is wearing Chanel. Now this, again, like not on theme at all. It's just some embroidery, and it's boring as shit. Next up, Miss Madeline Petch, and she is wearing Moschino. Now this is a great example of doing the theme. A gigot sleeve, and everybody would have been safe. All you had to do was goddamn gigot sleeve. Like, it's not that hard. I love this gigot sleeve. I like the way that it's sort of gathered and pleated and cummerbund to a degree. I also like the fact that it's attached to the crop top and it plays all in there. And again, it's sort of modernization. We're getting a little bit natural for me here, but I'm not opposed to it. I like the idea of the mermaid situation going with the gigot. I'm fine with it. The gigot sleeve exists. I don't really care. It looks great. Pass the test. Thank you, Miss Madeline. And last but not least, we're talking about Maisie Williams. She is wearing Thom Browne. Now, this is a white boned corset with a pleated jacket shrugged over the shoulders. I think it's part like skirt jacket situation. Now, there's the decorative buttons. We can see them. They exist all throughout. The pleating of the garment is most definitely, again, a reference to that sort of decorative style of the period. I wonder if this is essentially sort of like deconstructing the extravagant decorative elements of the bustle sort of styles and bringing it into something more a little bit jacket, shrug, shouldery, making it a little bit more languid. Could possibly be that. It could also possibly be not, and I'm just over explaining like I've done. I'm not sure. I'm not. Do I want to think my hunch is correct? Absolutely. It's just, I don't know. So if my hunch is correct, great. Think it's fun, think it's a different way to do it, very Thom Browne. So that is the end of today's video. Let's do a best and worst of this part 3 situation. Best, I'm gonna give 2. I'm gonna put like John Batiste in there, Laura Harrier, Madeline Petch in there, Jeremy Pope, Gwen Stefani in there. As for worst dressed, I will put Jack Harlow and Givenchy. It was just boring and didn't really fit good. It was sad. Lily Allen and Chanel, you know why. Yeah, Hillary Clinton, very bad. It's just ugly, sorry. And so yeah, that's that on that. Link in the description box below. Check out part 2, part 1, the theme explanation. See you guys on the next one, and TTYL.